Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Jordan, marketing manager here at Renegade. I'm joined today by Richard Garfield, creator and designer of some of the greatest games of our time, some of which being Magic the Gathering, and most notably to this conversation, Robo Rally. So we're going to dive into the history of Robo Rally, discuss thoughts on some of the updates that we've seen in the newest version here from Renegade Game Studios. So without further ado, let's get started. Thanks for joining us, Richard. And to kick things off, I just want to ask, what can you tell us about the original inspiration for Robo Rally?
Hi, it's great to be here talking about games and Robo Rally in particular. Um, Robo Rally is one of the first games I designed. It was the first game I considered publishable. Um, and where it came from, it's not super clear because a lot of my games go through so many steps of evolution. But it was inspired in part by an old game called, I think, Swashbuckler, where you sort of programmed your musketeers moves. But I've been working with all sorts of different robot-themed battle games where you built your robots and programmed them, and it was quite a breakthrough for my design to when I made it from a battling game into a racing game. And I
Right.
remember it was on one of my birthdays that I pulled out this gigantic board, which was the first Robo Rally board, and I raced all my birthday guests through the labyrinth of original Robo Rally.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool to hear. And what year was that? That was 1993, was it, or was it 94?
No, that would have been that was long before Robo Rally was published. The first time it was published was 94, but the first version of it was, say, 85.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Really cool.
Yeah, I actually spent there was a long period of time where I had it and I did not share it with companies or anything, try to get it published just because everything I had researched on it was that was just an interminable process. And
Mm.
so that may have been where it ended, except one of my friends fell in love with the design, and so he, Mike Davis, took it upon himself to get it published, and that's what led me to Wizards of the Coast. Um, and
Nice.
Yeah,
That's really cool. And speaking of the design, the game has a long life to it now. It's considered to be a classic by many. And within that life, there have been several editions of the game over the years, and some tweaks to the rules. So, my question for you is, what do you think has been the most significant of those changes? And what do you think led to them?
uh, well, the certainly the biggest change in the design has been in the recent versions, and what led to them was uh, I've got a characteristic of resisting playing my own games. It's when I do play them, I enjoy them, but when I but all else being equal, I'm going to grab a classic game or a new game or a game I love from somebody else. And one of the reasons for that is because I always go into design mode and I see uh, anticipate problems and things like that. And
Interesting.
my wife suggested that um, I take that opportunity to redesign some old designs. And I thought about it, and I realized there were some things that bothered me about the original Robo Rally, which I thought could be improved with 20, 30 years of extra experience. And and so I would say on top of that list is the original Robo Rally um, had had a strange relationship between the players and the options. The option cards, which make your robot cool, were fun to get and fun to play with, but they weren't necessarily, if you wanted to win the game, the best use of your time. And
Mm.
so, and so one of the changes I wanted to see made to the game was something which allowed all players to play that game of get cool options and upgrade the robot, and yet still
Right.
have a chance to win the game. So
Right.
I would
Yeah.
say that would be certainly among the biggest changes to the game.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that I think that's been a fantastic upgrade. More accessible experiences and just giving more opportunities to experience the fun eureka moments that I think a lot of games give us. So that's awesome. And just curious, what has your involvement been in the Renegade edition of this game?
Well, I made a version of Robo Rally that Hasbro published a while ago, and it was um, and so my involvement with Renegade was talking to them about what the design philosophy of those changes were and how to make them work as well as they could work. And so Renegade took my concerns and these mechanics and play tested them and then got them to work as well as they could, and involved me both in this initial strategizing and also in sort of reviewing the final product, the way it was explained, and the decisions they'd made to get those mechanics to work. Um, so so yeah, there's been Renegade has involved me in pretty much every step of the process, and it's been very gratifying to see what I wanted to have happen with Robo Rally be understood and happen.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear. And yeah, Dan Bojanowski, the senior producer on this game line, he's pretty amazing. He's been in the industry for many, many years, and I hear that pretty often that he does a great job at knowing what to target and what to adjust. So it's great to hear that that's been your experience as well. A bit more of a targeted question for you here. What do you think of the evolution of the board elements over the years? For example, golden conveyors have changed to green and are more integrated at the junction points among some other updates. So I think I know the answer here based on some of the insights you've provided on these previous questions, but do you miss any of the wrenches of the old or do you find that drawing damage cards and collecting energy is a logical update to the game?
Oh, I think it's a logical update to the game. I think that the evolution of the board elements have been one that has been moving steadily towards a good balance between graphical clarity, uh, uh, flavor, and clarity. So it's become more iconic and more understandable at a glance, and at the same time, engaging with the fun and frenetic flavor of Robo Rally. This is really it's been a process of honing over the years, which has led to I think just a much cleaner look and something which people can play much more with much more intuitively. The original version, as much as I love it, it took a more education to get people to understand how the conveyor belts work,
Right.
and there were things that just weren't as clear as they are today.
Gotcha. Nice. Awesome. That's great to hear. And in this new edition from Renegade Game Studios, a priority token is featured that is passed clockwise at the end of each round. Was something like this ever considered early on in other iterations of the game?
No, the priority. So it wasn't until the Hasbro edition that I began thinking about different ways to do priority. And my solution at that point was something that was too complicated. It was some sort of radar sweep or something where I had a piece on the map, and where whoever was closest to it would have priority, and there's a sweep, and I proposed that to Renegade as being, if not a solution, something which could lead to a solution. And Renegade came back to me with this idea of the priority token, which is just simpler. It's like there wasn't there, and I don't know how many, whether that was the first thing they thought of or they went through steps, but I know there was a lot of um, a lot of confusion in my solution. So it was nice to see this this very simple solution, and it's good because it's not a mechanic you want to spend a lot of time thinking about. It's not a fun mechanic figuring out who has the priority. You
Right.
just want it there when you need it. So
Yeah, and just jump in. Got it. Cool. That's awesome. And another new feature in this version from Renegade is a 20 card deck of programming cards for each player. Was that something that was ever tested back in the 90s, or was it always just one large deck of cards? And which way do you prefer now?
it was always one large deck of cards, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I I began to think about that in the aughts. But the idea was just that players would complain about getting several turns where they only got turns, things like that. And for a long time, I wrote that off as being, just people like to whine about the hands they're dealt. But any card player knows you just have patience and it all works out.
Yeah.
But uh, over time, I thought that giving people their own small deck not only flattened that distribution, which could be good for the game, it also allowed you the opportunity for some different mechanics. Uh, and so that's when I began playing with it. And after testing it, I thought it worked really well. There's a always a trade-off when you do something like that, because you're trading off variety with um, sort of a more regular distribution. And so
Right.
one big deck gives you more variety, but then, and I always err on the side of variety. I like, variety in my games, and I've got the patience to outlast the bad parts. And but but here, I think what's being culled from that variety has definitely made it worth it from the player perspective. They just get more hands have that they can work with, and that's in the end what's important.
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I think it's just so neat to hear sort of the balancing side of the game design perspective. Because as players, I don't think that it's something that we really we don't look at it through that lens. So it's pretty neat. Well, Richard, that's sort of the last of my questions about this new edition, but I do want to end this out with more of a fun question. I don't know, I haven't seen this asked before, so I'm actually really curious of the answer, but what type of Robo Rally player are you? Pure racer, clever pathfinder to avoid conflict, energy and upgrade collector. What's your strategy?
Uh, I I focused on racing and getting myself into situations where I could um, play a cat and mouse game with my opponents. So I liked combat. Um, you're not going to win if you focus on combat in Robo Rally, and so I certainly never did. But I also liked getting into the situations where it was there, and if I went to the left, which is what they would expect me to do, then this would happen. But if I went to the right and they didn't expect me to do that, I could dump them in a pit or slip past to the flag. So I really like the cat and mouse games that you can get into, and would seek those out.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I think it's really cool to hear that your top priority isn't to win the game. It's just to have fun playing, which I think is something that is sometimes missed by many players. But something to keep in mind, that the point of playing these games is to have fun. So
Yeah, that does. It's worth tying that back, I think, to the change in the upgrades. It is I think a sign of good game design when you can line up what is fun with with winning. So it's not that everything has to be the most fun on the way to the winning, but if you like collecting options, you shouldn't have to lose. And so
right,
getting your strategy to be supported is a good thing. But yeah, I absolutely am playing for fun and to explore the fringes of the game, and that's what I play almost all the games I play for. So
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very busy man. We are super excited about this new version of Robo Rally. It's really, I said this many times at Gen Con. We just got back from the show, but it's kind of a dream come true for the whole team to be working on such a classic game. It's already cemented in history, so it's very, very humbling and an honor to work on it. So thanks for taking the
Well,
time.
I couldn't ask for a better support team. It's really nice to see the game so well taken care of.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks, Richard.